Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo 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 Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Continuing taking shelter from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 1. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmatyasya yatanmayati tirtashtratishvabhikya swarat Tene pramaridaya rikavaye mayanti yat sureha Chetyo vari mridang yata vinamayo yatra trisakam risha Dhanna svena sadani rashtakuhakam satyam param dhimahi. O my Lord, Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes, of the creation, sustenance and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen on fire, or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Conditioned souls, beginning from Brahma, who engineers the entire universe, down to the insignificant ant, are all creating, but none of them are independent of the Supreme Lord. The materialist wrongly thinks that there is no creator other than his own self. This is called Maya or illusion. Because of his poor fount of knowledge, the materialist cannot see beyond the purview of his imperfect senses, and thus he thinks that matter automatically takes its own shape without the aid of a superior intelligence. This is refuted in this sloka by Srila Vyasadeva. Since the complete whole or the absolute truth is the source of everything, nothing can be independent of the body of the absolute truth. Whatever happens to the body quickly becomes known to the embodied. Similarly, the creation is the body of the absolute whole. Therefore, the absolute knows everything directly and indirectly what happens in the creation. In the Shruti mantra, it is also stated that the absolute whole, or Brahman, is the ultimate source of everything. Everything emanates from him, and everything is maintained by him. And at the end, everything enters into him. That is the law of nature. In Smriti mantra, the same is confirmed. It is said that the source from which everything emanates at the beginning of Brahma's millennium, and the reservoir of which everything ultimately enters, is the absolute truth, or Brahman. Material scientists take it for granted that the ultimate source of the planetary systems is the sun, but they are unable to explain the source of the sun. Herein the ultimate source is explained. According to Vedic literatures, Brahma, who may be compared to the sun, is not the ultimate creator. It is stated in this sloka that Brahma was taught Vedic knowledge by the personality of Godhead. One may argue that Brahma, being the original living being, could not be inspired because there was no other living being at that time. Herein it is stated that the Supreme Lord inspired the secondary creator Brahma in order that Brahma could carry out his creative functions. So the supreme intelligence behind all creation is the absolute Godhead Sri Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Sri Krishna states that it is he only who superintends the creative energy Prakriti, which constitute the totality of matter. Therefore, Sri Vyasadeva does not worship Brahma, but the Supreme Lord, who guides Brahma in his creative activities. In this sloka, the particular word Abhigya and Swarat are significant. These two words distinguish the Supreme Lord from all other living entities. No other living entity is either Abhigya or Swarat. That is, no one is either fully cognizant or fully independent. Even Brahma has to meditate upon the Supreme Lord in order to create. Then what to speak of great scientists like Einstein? The brains of such scientists are certainly not a product of any human being. Scientists cannot manufacture such a brain, and what to speak of foolish atheists who defy the authority of the Lord? Even Mayavadi impersonalists who flatter themselves that they can become one with the Lord are neither Abhigya or Swarat. Such impersonalists undergo severe austerities to acquire knowledge, to become one with the Lord, but ultimately they become dependent on some rich disciple who supplies them with money to build monasteries and temples. Atheists like Ravana and Hiranyakashipu had to undergo severe penances before they could flout the authority of the Lord. But ultimately they were rendered helpless and could not save themselves when the Lord appeared before them as cruel death. This is also the case with the modern atheist, who also dare to flout the authority of the Lord. Such atheists will be dealt with similarly, for history repeats itself. Whenever man neglects the authority of the Lord, nature and her laws are there to penalize them. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita in the well-known verse Yada yada hi dharmasya glani. Whenever there is a decline in dharma and a rise of adharma, O Arjuna, then I incarnate myself. This is Bhagavad Gita 4.7. That the Supreme Lord is all-perfect is confirmed in all Shruti mantras. It is said in the Shruti mantras that the all-perfect Lord threw a glance over matter and thus created all living beings. The living beings are parts and parcels of the Lord, and he impregnates the vast material creation with seeds of spiritual sparks, and thus the creative energy are set in motion to enact so many wonderful creations. An atheist may argue that God is no more expert than a watchmaker, but of course God is greater because he can create machines in duplicate male and female forms. The male and female forms of the different types of machinery go on producing innumerable similar machines without God's further attention. If a man could manufacture such a set of machines that could produce other machines without his attention, then he could approach the intelligence of God. But that is not possible, for each machine has to be handled individually. Therefore no one can create as well as God. Another name of God is Aushamartva, which means that no one is equal to or greater than him. Param Satyam, or the Supreme Truth, is he who has no equal or superior. This is confirmed in the Shruti mantras. It is said that before the creation of the material universe, there existed the Lord only, who is the master of everyone. The Lord instructed Brahma in Vedic knowledge. The Lord has to be obeyed in all respects. Anyone who wants to get rid of the material entanglement must surrender unto him. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Unless one surrenders unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, it is certain that he will be bewildered. When an intelligent man surrenders unto the lotus feet of Krishna and knows completely that Krishna is the cause of all causes, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, then only can such an intelligent man become a Mahatma, or a great soul. Such great souls is rarely seen. Only the Mahatmas can understand that the Supreme Lord is the primeval cause of all creation. He is Parama, or ultimate truth, because all other truth are relative to him. He is omniscient. For him there is no illusion. Some Mayavadi scholars argue that Srimad Bhagavatam are not compiled by Sri Vyasadeva, and some of them suggest that this book is a modern creation written by someone named Bhupadev. In order to refute such meaningless arguments, Sri Sridhar Swami points out that there is a reference to the Bhagavatam in many of the oldest Puranas. The first sloka of the Bhagavatam begins with the Gayatri mantra. There is a reference to this in the Matsya Purana, which is the oldest Purana. In the Purana it is said, with reference to the Gayatri mantra in the Bhagavatam, that there are many narrations of spiritual instructions beginning with the Gayatri mantra. And there is the history of Ritasura. Anyone who makes a gift of this great book on a full moon day attains to the highest perfection of life by returning to Godhead. There is reference to the Bhagavatam in other Puranas also, where it is clearly stated that this work was finished in 12 cantos, which include 18,000 slokas. In Padma Purana also there is a reference to the Bhagavatam in a conversation between Gautama and Maharaj Ambarish. The king was advised therein to read regularly Srimad Bhagavatam if he desired liberation from material bondage. Under the circumstances, there is no doubt about the authority of the Bhagavatam. Within the past 500 years, many erudite scholars and acharyas like Srila Jiva Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti, Vallabhacharya, and many other distinguished scholars, even after the time of Lord Chaitanya, made elaborate commentaries on the Bhagavatam. And the serious students would do well to attempt to go through them to better relish the transcendental messages. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur specifically deals with the original and pure sex psychology, Adhirasa, devoid of all mundane impropriety. The whole material creation is moving under the principle of sex life. In modern civilization, sex life is the focal point for all activities. Whenever one turns his face, he sees sex life is prominent. Therefore, sex life is not unreal. Its reality is experienced in the spiritual world. The material sex life is but a perverted reflection of the original fact. The original fact is in the absolute truth, and thus the absolute truth cannot be impersonal. It is not possible to be impersonal and contain pure sex life. Consequently, the impersonalist philosophers have given indirect impetus to the abominable mundane sex life, because they have overstressed the impersonality of the ultimate truth. Consequently, man without information of the actual spiritual form of sex has accepted a perverted material sex life as the all in all. There is a distinction between sex life in a diseased material condition and spiritual sex life. This Srimad Bhagavatam will gradually elevate the unbiased reader to the highest perfectional states of transcendence. It will enable him to transcend the three modes of material nature: fruitive actions, speculative philosophy, and worship of functional deities as inculcated in the Vedic verses. Any questions? Long paper. For now we finish the verse. So this will be the last time in this section of the 10 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam that we will speak on this verse. So we hear that I'll take out a few points because there's so many things here. So I'll just take a few points from the purport and try to discuss those. So Prabhupada mentioned that the atheists like Ravana and Hiranyakashipu, they were punished by the Lord. And I was thinking in this connection that often we are the atheists. That it's often difficult to we can easily relate to it's out there, right? It's out there, and it's Ravana, he was an atheist, or Dhritarashtra, he was in ignorance, and he was he was blind, right? Prabhupada says it wasn't a problem he was blind, the problem was he was spiritual blind. So that is so easy to, it's out there, but how often do we see really the atheist in our own heart, and the atheistic tendencies that we have? And that's really what we should meditate. When we hear stories of Ravana and Hiranyakashipu, we should see, do I have any of these qualities? And if we hear of Dhritarashtra, Dhritarashtra was not very evil as such, he was just weak. So often we have this this weakness of heart, that we are not really capable of getting up to the mark of being a devotee, and that means being an atheist. Right? We are either, or Prabhupada says, Bhagavad Gita says, there's two classes of people, two classes of men, the atheist and the theist, the demigods and the demons. So we have to fit into one of these categories, and it's dependent upon us and our activities really, and mindset of which category we fall. So we should, of course, endeavor to be not only demigods and have the qualities of the demigods, but we should endeavor to be devotees. So in order to fight this atheistic tendencies in our hearts, we need to be completely, always, we have to be in tune with what Bhagavatam says, because that is where we learn. It's difficult many times, we hear in Bhagavad Gita it's qualities like enviousness or anger and all these things. So if they are manifest in our heart, that means there are demonic tendencies there. So in order to fight them, we need to know how to fight them, and we need what we put instead. And of course we know it's Krishna consciousness, but Shastra describes very clearly how we do that, how we follow that process and put it instead of removing the demonic tendencies and demonic qualities and putting in the divine qualities. Probably give the example, if you have a cup full of water, well, and you continue to pour water, there's no more, the dirt will go out, right? So you can only have so and so much. So if you push out all the bad qualities, only the good qualities remains, because that is our nature. So we heard Prabhupada yesterday, and Prabhupada spoke about giving in charity, how it's so important for the grihastas, for the householders to give in charity. And he gave the example of Kolavita Shrita, where he was giving, and Prabhupada said, I think he said 2.5 cents every day in charity, and he only made so very little, so he practically used everything he had in charity. And we know Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu will still come and bargain for his banana leaves and banana plates, etc. And he wouldn't pay him full price. Actually, he wouldn't give him anything. He says, I'm a Brahmana, you should just give it to me. And eventually Sridhar just said, okay, you take it. He couldn't refuse him. And he gave the example of Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami giving half of their wealth to the Vaishnavas, and 25% I think he gave to relatives. In this case it was for Sanatana Goswami, he never took advantage of, and he wanted to go and have the association of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And 25% to ourselves. So most likely very few will be able to live up to that standard today. But at least we should endeavor, and it should be part of our whole setup, that really this is dharma. And if we are not doing our dharma, it's like a grihasta not giving in charity. It's like a sannyas not studying the scriptures. So it's completely adharmic. So unless we are capable of following dharma, how do we expect to get Krishna's mercy? It's impossible. You're not. Because this is the basic thing. This is just human life, really, to be dharmic. Like Prabhupada says, the following of the four regulatory principles is nothing to do with spiritual life as such. It's just coming to the human platform. So dharma is the same. It's just coming to the human platform. This is what we are. We are meant to serve Krishna. And the animals and the trees, the plants, etc., they do not have that capacity, or at least it's very, very dormant. and they have no possibility of actively serving Krishna. But humans do. So if we choose not to do that by not following Dharma, then can we really call ourselves devotees? Can we really expect to get the mercy of Krishna in our activities, to get the mercy of Krishna when we are chanting Hare Krishna? Because that's what it's all about, right? It's all about, what human life is all about, is getting the mercy of Krishna. And that's the only way we make advancement. And we get the mercy of Krishna by Yasya Prasada, Bhagavat Prasada, by getting the mercy of the spiritual master, by getting the mercy of the devotees. So it's said like, it's very difficult to go directly to Krishna, but we go to the spiritual master, or even like go lower down, go to the normal, so-called normal common devotees and serve them and help them progress in spiritual life. That's real charity. So that's for Grihastha, that's really the dharma, to do that. Do we have faith in when we are chanting Hare Krishna that actually that will purify our heart? And actually if we do that sincerely, then Krishna will manifest. Or when we study Bhagavatam, when we hear Bhagavatam in the morning, do we have faith? And Prabhupada says in the preface in the Bhagavatam that this Bhagavatam, its translations, purport, transliterations, synonyms, can elevate the unbiased reader to the platform of where he's completely free from, to the platform of, what's the word Prabhupada uses? Not Paramhamsa, but the platform where he's completely realized Krishna consciousness. And he said that will help him defeat the onslaught of the atheist, and himself come to the point where he can defeat his mind, his atheistic senses. And Nanda Maharaj, he says in the 10th canto, he says, just after Krishna took birth, and he wanted to give charity, he says, Kalina snana sauchabhyam samskaras tapasitya ujyanti dhanai santustya dravyani atma vidyaya. Kalina, by time, this is all about different things we used, everything we have around us should be purified, as Prabhupada says, should be Krishnized. So Kalina, by time, land and objects like stones, etc. are purified. By time, land is purified. Kalina snana, by bathing, the body is purified. Kalina snana sauchabhyam, by by cleaning, unclean things are purified. Kalina snana sauchabhyam samskaras, by samskaras, our sense, by samskaras, our hearts are purified. I can't remember. Samskaras tapas, by austerity, the senses are purified. Ujjaja, by worship, the brahmanas are purified. Dhana, by dhana Sudyanti dhana, by wealth, by giving in charity, wealth is purified. So that's how everything becomes purified, by using it in Krishna's service. So if we don't use our income, wherever we get it from working or from our pension or whatever, if you're not using any of that in Krishna's service directly by giving charity, then it's not purified. That means we get karma from that money. Everything in this world is related to karma. Everything is contaminated here. So whatever we have, like whatever we are interacting with, involves us in that karma. Except if we use it for Krishna. That's the only thing. That's the only remedy against getting involved in karma constantly. So to finish the verse, Dana is santustya, samyatya, Dravyani atma vidyaya. By purification, the soul is purified. So all these things, they purify our hearts to the degree where we can actually relate with Krishna. Otherwise we are relating with matter. So the whole process is given, but it's up to us to follow the process, to be dharmic, to be there for each other, to help each other. This is the whole system, right? The brahmacharis and the sannyasis, they study the scriptures, and they, in that way, they are able to inspire all society, all living entities, by telling them about Krishna, explaining the topics of Krishna consciousness. And the grihastas and the grihastas especially, their dharma is to give charity, so that that system can work. Because normally the brahmanas, they do not really accumulate wealth. Not much. That's not their dharma. Their dharma is, as we just mentioned, to study the scriptures and to preach it. And then the grihastas, which are compared to the belly, is the one that's feeding the whole Vana ashram body, so that the whole thing goes on, so that the system works. Otherwise, won't work. Right? If you take some part, if you take the belly away from the body will not work. If you take the hands away from the body, or the legs away from the body will not work properly. And the brahmanas are the head, the Vaishyas are the arms. No. Kshatriyas, of course. The Kshatriyas are the arms, the Vaishyas are the belly, and the Sudras are the legs. So in that way the whole body functions. But if we take one of these limbs away, then the Vana ashram body will not function. So it's so important that everybody do their part, everybody do their duty in Krishna consciousness. And if we do that, then all these things will happen automatically. As Prabhupada says here in the end, what is it? He says, the Srimad Bhagavatam will gradually elevate the unbiased reader to the highest perfectional states of transcendence. But that happened. Here again, the chanting the Maha Mantra, just by chanting once purely, come to the platform of Bhava, or Prema. What is this? Duruhat Bhudha Vyasmin Shraddha Duras Tupantake. Yatva Svalpo Pisambande Satyam Bhavatyanmane. Duruhat Buddha, these 5 items, Duruhat Bhudha Vyasmin, the power of them are so wonderful and so powerful. Duruhat Buddha Vyasmin Shraddha Duras Tupantake. Pantake of these 5. Shraddha Duras, just a little Shraddha, just a little faith in any of them. Shraddha Duras Tupantake. Yatra Svalpu, again, Su Alpos means very, very little. Just Yatra Svalpu Sambande, just a little relation to any of these 5. Satyam, if it's done without envy in a pure consciousness. Satyam Bhava Janmane. Janmane means birth to Bhava. That means just by performing one of these 5 gives birth to Bhava. So are we on the level of Bhava? We are performing these 5 every day, most of us, at least most of them. What are the 5s? Anyone remember? Deity worship.
The 5 most important?
Yeah.
Deity worship, hearing the Bhagavatam, chanting the holy name.
Yeah. Right.
Yes, I Shravana Kirtan.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah.
Living the holy Dham.
Yes.
And what's the 5th?
Bhagavatam.
Bhagavatam, yes.
Yeah. So, like, worshipping the deity, living in a holy place, hearing Bhagavatam, chanting the holy names, and sadhu sangha, associating with devotees. So, one of those, just a little Shu Alpa, just a little of those, brings us immediately to the level of Bhava. Are we on Bhava? Because we're not doing it right. We're not doing it right. But that's really what Bhagavatam is promising. Just by doing one of these activities. And that's why we hear all these examples, right? Sukadeva Goswami and Pariksit Maharaj assembled hearing and chanting. So there's personalities. Assemble all these 5. So that we can learn from them. That's what Bhagavatam is there for. Bhagavatam is there to teach us, right? How to follow Dharma, how to live according to our topmost. We should we should come to the point where we're constantly trying to elevate our consciousness so that our consciousness, our existence is more pleasing to Krishna. And this is really where the rasa is. See any like athlete or any businessman, right? What they're constantly doing is to get better every day. That's really the rasa. The rasa is not really in the result. We think so wrongly. The rasa is not in the result as such. Of course we know like the result is prema in that sense, yes. But what happens in prema, the activities, it's the activities in prema that really gives the rasa. So when we hear of sambandha, avidya and prayojana, sambandha is the relationship, and avidya is the process, and prayojana is the result. But the result is, in the result is sambandha and avidya. So really what gives the rasa is that we follow the dharma properly, that we really imply it in our lives. And by doing that, that's what Krishna is saying. Krishna reciprocates. And he gives us the taste. He gives the taste, he gives the higher taste. And that's what we're looking for. Otherwise, what happens is we just go on. If you do the same you've always been doing, you're a fool if you expect a different result than you already got. So Krishna consciousness is all about being inspired. We are inspired when we hear, we should be inspired when we hear Bhagavatam. We should be inspired when we hear about Krishna. We should be inspired when we hear about, oh, this is what I'm doing wrong. Wow, great, now I know. Now how do I apply that in my life? How do I change that from doing something wrong to doing it right? That's progress. That's what really, that's where the rasa is. And if you start doing that, that's what Krishna is saying. I carry what Ananya's Tinta and one I carry what he like and I preserve what he already has. So if we want to be a part of Krishna's world, that's where it starts. We start following Dharma, start applying in our lives, and we start making a conscious endeavor, because the tendency is that Krishna consciousness executed in a wrong way become mechanical. And if you do it in a mechanical way, then there's no rasa, then there's no taste. No taste. So it's up to us, it's up to our endeavor. Whatever we put into, especially the most important 5 items, or just pick one of these items and do it into perfection, then our life is perfect. Okay, thank you very much. Any comments or questions?
So you spoke about the dharma of dana, charity, and that's especially for the grihastas. So we know that the different activities of spreading the Sankirtan movement, which is everyone's mission in life, only by doing that we can please the spiritual master, because all the spiritual masters coming in our line from Srila Prabhupada, the whole goal is to spread the Sankirtan movement, not just to cultivate it for ourselves. So getting the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and his followers is, spreading the Sankirtan movement. That's very essential. So not everyone can do that like directly. They do it like partially, indirectly, or whatever, because most are engaged in family life and work and study and taking care of the family and like that. So they have to, the way they can do it is to support those who are directly doing it in different ways. And one of the major ways, of course, is to sacrifice some of your hard-earned money for preaching activities. So even though we know it, it's not like, it seems it's not so developed within our society. So how can one kind of establish that culture?
It is again like if see, we are like a temple here, right? Farmproject is a temple, and our duty is to give the opportunity to people to come and hear, to come and participate in any way they can. So those who live close by, they can come. We will soon establish having Sunday feast every Sunday. We are celebrating all the festivals. So that's giving the opportunity for people to come, and then they hear. And then there is like we are sending out these lectures to people who can hear if they're not possible for them to come here in the morning. Might be difficult for most. Then they can see the lectures here, or they can see Prabhupada's lectures, hear Prabhupada's lectures. So every day, so they get this inspiration, so they know what to do, how to behave, right, and get inspired. And then when they learn that, I'm amazed that like we have this project, right? We're really trying to do it according to Prabhupada's instructions and following Prabhupada's legacy. And we are more or less sacrificing everything. Vishwamati, she bought this place, right, with her own money and used everything she has. She's using all her money every month for this project. And we are, the two of us are humbly trying to help here, paying some rent and also doing our seva to make it work. So we are sort of like in the middle of it, but everyone should really think, especially in Denmark, but yeah, especially in Denmark at least, everyone should think, how can I be part of this project? And that is, for the Grihastas, that is really to give dhan, to give charity. And if they start doing that, I'm amazed. Like I think now we have 2 donors, and we shouldn't get into politics. It's not really the purpose of the Bhagavatam lecture. But very, very few are doing it at the moment. So something is wrong. Somehow at one point we sort of like lost the understanding of what it really means to be Krishna conscious. They have it in most other traditions, right? They give, in many traditions, religious traditions, they have to give 10% of the brutto income to whatever church. So this is so. Otherwise, you're not part of it. You're still allowed to come, but you're not really part. You're not in congregation unless you are part of it in that sense. So what we can do to establish that is just we should do our duty. Right? We should do our duty. We should try to give people the facilities so that they can hear and they can come here and participate in the programs. And if we do that, then we just have to depend upon Krishna and see that everybody comes to that realization, what is their duty. And if that starts working, then this place will flourish very fast. Right? It will anyway, I think it will anyway, because as long as we keep some kind of purity here, I'm not saying I'm far from perfect, but the two of you most likely are, but still. But if we do our best to make it work, right? Make it a yajna every day, to make it work, then it will flourish. And then it's just like Krishna is saying to Arjuna, like, I'm doing it, but you can be my instrument. So people can just choose to be part of that, because that's how Krishna reward, right? They give according, Krishna again, Yatamam Papatanti, Krishna reciprocate. And it's said in Madhya Lila, Caitanya Candradasa, I can't remember who's speaking, but then it said that if charity is given to a half-educated brahmana, it's giving the same back in next life. You get the same, you get what you get. If you give it to a fully equipped brahmana with learning, then you get it 100 and 1,000 times again. If you give it to a Vaishnava, one who has understood the essence of the Vedas, you get that charity unlimited times back. So now again it comes back to, do we have faith? Is that real? Is that true? Or is in the Shastra, is it true? Otherwise, if you don't believe, we are atheists. We don't really believe in Shastra, means we don't believe in Krishna ultimately. So I'm not saying because you're not doing, you don't believe in Krishna, but what I'm saying is that the tendency, what we see, is the tendency is that if we're not really going upwards, we're going downwards. It's very, very difficult to just stagnate. But even if you're stagnating, that's not the goal. We want to go upward. So if we're not experienced that in our life, we should study, we should see, what am I doing wrong? What is it I'm not doing in my life? What is it I am doing that is not satisfying Krishna? And if we do that, then we will get a result. We will get a result. Maybe not, we will not reach prema the next week, but we will get a result, and we'll see, we'll get more taste from hearing. Srinvatam Svakata Krishna. Krishna is the Paramatma in everyone's heart, cleanses the desire of material enjoyment from the heart of the devotees who have developed the urge to his messages, which are so virtuous when properly heard and chanted. So if we do this, if we hear Bhagavatam, if we get into the habits of listening to Krishna's messages throughout the day and chanting our rounds to the best of our ability, we will get a result if we follow Dharma, if we do our duty in society. So. Grandarat Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.